December 15th, 1943. Dawn breaks over a remote Pacific island. Mist rises from the beaches, softening the jagged outlines of coral cliffs and bunkered fortifications. Japanese commanders pace quietly within their command posts, eyes scanning maps, expecting fierce resistance. Soldiers grip rifles and man artillery, anticipating the violent thunder of an American amphibious assault. Across the water, U.S. landing craft slice through gentle waves, engines humming under the rising sun. Marines crouch in formation, faces tense beneath helmets, eyes fixed on the shorelines that appear eerily quiet. The air smells of salt, oil, and anticipation. Officers whisper final instructions, signals are checked, and every crew member braces for the storm they know is coming. Yet beneath the tension, a subtle uncertainty lingers. Reconnaissance has reported unusual quiet along the defensive lines, a calm that feels almost unnatural. The Marines will soon discover what Japanese commanders do not yet realize. The forts they have painstakingly built, the artillery and machine gun nests prepared for a brutal battle, stand empty, vulnerable, and unopposed. The first steps onto the sand will mark a moment of shock that will reverberate through the Pacific campaign. By late 1943, the Pacific theater had become a sprawling contest of islands, seas, and fortifications. The United States, following its island-hopping strategy, sought to bypass heavily defended Japanese strongholds and capture positions that would serve as stepping stones toward Japan itself. Each island represented more than terrain. It was a node of strategic power, controlling supply lines, airfields, and naval access. The Japanese, anticipating American advances, had invested heavily in fortifying key islands. Coastal artillery, pillboxes, machine gun nests, and interlocking fields of fire were meticulously constructed to slow or repel any amphibious assault. Japanese doctrine emphasized tenacious resistance. Commanders were expected to hold positions to the last man, turning every beach and hillside into a killing ground. Intelligence reports predicted that any American landing would be met with intense, organized fire, making casualties inevitable. For the Americans, planning such assaults required exhaustive preparation. Naval and air reconnaissance mapped the island's terrain, while aerial photography and intelligence from intercepted communications helped identify likely defensive positions. Engineers studied coral reefs, tidal patterns, and beach gradients to determine where landing craft could approach safely. Amphibious divisions trained relentlessly, rehearsing landings, securing beaches under simulated fire, and coordinating infantry, artillery, and naval gunfire. Commanders emphasized coordination at every level. Battalion leaders were empowered to adjust landings in real time, while artillery observers and naval spotters communicated constantly to ensure fire support covered advancing Marines. The combination of intelligence, planning, and training aimed to minimize uncertainty and exploit weaknesses in Japanese defenses. Yet even with meticulous preparation, uncertainty remained. The Japanese were skilled engineers and strategists. Their fortifications were formidable, their willingness to fight to the last man deeply ingrained. The psychological stakes were high on both sides. Japanese commanders expected a bloody confrontation, envisioning their forces inflicting heavy casualties on the invading Americans. Meanwhile, Marines faced the tension of anticipation, the knowledge that thousands of enemy soldiers could be waiting in concealed positions, ready to unleash fire the moment landing craft touched sand. Each step carried risk. Every landing craft could become a death trap. Despite this, American leadership recognized that success depended on exploiting speed, coordination, and overwhelming firepower. The strategy was simple in principle, but complex in execution. Hit quickly, secure key positions, and prevent Japanese forces from organizing an effective counterattack. Reconnaissance and intelligence were critical, but so was the discipline and training of the Marines who would carry out the landings under hostile conditions. At the operational level, the U.S. Navy and Army Air Forces played crucial roles. Naval bombardments softened anticipated defensive positions, while carrier-based aircraft provided air cover and reconnaissance. Every element, from amphibious craft to artillery shells, was synchronized to create a system designed for maximum efficiency. Commanders relied on timing, coordination, and precise execution to overcome natural obstacles and human resistance alike. Yet, even in this environment of intense preparation, some anomalies appeared. Intelligence reports suggested that certain fortifications might be lightly defended or abandoned, but these indications were treated with caution. For Marines landing on a foreign shore, the cost of error was measured in lives. Each officer and enlisted man understood that any miscalculation could be catastrophic. Thus, as dawn approached on the day of the landing, two realities collided: the Japanese expectation of a fierce, costly defense, and the American preparation for an assault designed to exploit any opening. The tension was palpable. Commanders, soldiers, and sailors all waited for the first moment when plans would meet reality, not knowing that the confrontation they anticipated would unfold in a way none expected. This stage was set not only for a tactical operation, but for a moment of psychological shock, an unopposed storming of fortifications that would leave Japanese commanders stunned, Marines cautious but advancing, and the Pacific campaign poised for a dramatic shift. In the hours before the landing, the island lay quiet, almost deceptively so. American intelligence had noted unusual activity, or rather, the lack of it, along the defensive lines. Reconnaissance flights had observed limited patrols, lightly manned bunkers, and an absence of the usual signs of readiness. No visible artillery crews, no supply movements, and unusually empty trenches. Analysts debated whether the reports indicated deception, a tactical withdrawal, or a genuine weakness in Japanese defenses. Japanese commanders, meanwhile, remained confident. Forts bristling with artillery and machine guns were strategically positioned to cover every potential landing site. Maps detailed overlapping fields of fire, interlocking defensive positions, and fallback routes designed to channel attackers into kill zones. Officers instructed troops to hold positions at all costs, instilling a belief that American forces would face a bloody, costly advance. There was an expectation that every inch of beach would be contested, every advance met with fire. Behind the Japanese lines, communication channels were tense. Reports of unusual inactivity on certain beaches caused minor concern, but few commanders anticipated a total absence of resistance. Confidence in the strength of fortifications, combined with rigid doctrine emphasizing steadfast defense, led many to dismiss the possibility that Marines could encounter virtually no opposition. American planners, however, prepared for every contingency. Amphibious divisions rehearsed multiple scenarios: heavy resistance, partial withdrawal, booby-trap positions, and full abandonment. Naval bombardments were carefully timed to suppress key fortifications while minimizing unnecessary destruction in the event of an unopposed landing. Commanders coordinated artillery and naval fire to cover advance routes inland, ready to engage any enemy forces that might appear. On the morning of December 15th, reconnaissance boats confirmed the reports. Japanese fortifications appeared largely unmanned. The Marines faced an eerie silence, the fortresses looming over empty beaches. Officers double-checked communications, commanders verified landing craft positions, and soldiers braced for potential traps. Every precaution was taken, yet a sense of cautious disbelief rippled through the ranks. Could the reports be correct? Could they truly land on fortified beaches without encountering heavy resistance? The strategic implications were clear. If the forts were indeed unoccupied or lightly defended, the Americans could secure a key position without significant casualties. It would accelerate the island-hopping campaign, save lives, and deliver a psychological blow to Japanese morale. For the Japanese, the possibility of losing a fortified position without a fight challenged deeply held doctrines of honor, sacrifice, and tenacity. Commanders would soon confront a reality they had not anticipated. Their preparations, their expectations of a valiant last stand, were being rendered irrelevant by circumstance and American intelligence. The stage was set for a confrontation unlike any the Japanese had envisioned. Marines would advance on a beaches designed to channel them into deadly fire, yet find them empty. Their first steps would mark the collapse of defensive assumptions, the failure of Japanese anticipation, a moment that would stun commanders watching from observation posts and bunkers. Every element, training, planning, reconnaissance, and intelligence, had converged to create this anomaly, a heavily fortified island poised for battle that could be taken without a single volley from the enemy. The Marines, disciplined and alert, were ready to step into history, while Japanese commanders would face a moment of disbelief that would ripple through their ranks and the wider campaign. For the Marines, anticipation and discipline defined every moment before the landing. Faces were tense beneath helmets, hands gripping rifles, eyes scanning the mist-covered shoreline. Each soldier carried not only a weapon, but the weight of expectation, training, comrades, and the unknown dangers that might await on the beaches. Months of preparation, amphibious drills, and simulated assaults had led to this moment. Yet, despite rigorous training, uncertainty lingered. Marines understood the cost of miscalculation. Intelligence suggested light defenses, but caution dictated readiness for sudden fire. Hearts pounded as landing craft cut through waves, engines growling. The human experience of fear, focus, and fleeting doubt created a palpable tension that shaped every movement. Meanwhile, Japanese personnel experienced the inverse of this tension. Commanders expected a fierce confrontation, preparing for a costly defense. Their discipline and adherence to doctrine underscored a culture of steadfast resistance. Yet as reports of inactivity on the beaches filtered in, disbelief and anxiety rippled through command posts. Soldiers ready for battle were largely idle, uncertain if they had been ordered correctly or if deception masked a trap. This human interplay, anticipation on one side, disbelief on the other, set the stage for a moment of shock that would define the landing. The Marines' courage and readiness met a defensive force unprepared to engage, creating a surreal battlefield where expectation clashed with reality. Tactical angle. The landing's tactical execution was a model of precision. Every unit had defined objectives: secure the beach, capture key positions, and prevent Japanese forces from regrouping. Naval gunfire had been calculated to suppress fortifications without destroying them unnecessarily, preserving them for occupation. Landing craft approached in staggered waves, minimizing exposure and maintaining momentum. The Marines' use of terrain exemplified tactical foresight. Natural ridges, dunes, and coral outcrops provided cover for the initial advance. Observers coordinated movements to ensure overlapping fields of fire, ready to engage any defenders. Even in the absence of resistance, every movement reflected careful planning. Speed, coordination, and flexibility remained paramount. Japanese tactical doctrine had emphasized interlocking defenses and channeling attackers into kill zones. The sudden absence of resistance rendered these plans moot. Commanders scrambled to reassess positions, redirect units, and prepare contingencies. Tactically, the Americans had achieved an unexpected advantage. The enemy's strongest points were effectively bypassed without combat, transforming what had been a high-risk operation into a strategic victory. Technological angle. Technology played a central role in the success of the landing. Landing craft, engineered for shallow reefs and coral-strewn beaches, allowed Marines to disembark efficiently. Radios and signal equipment enabled real-time coordination between infantry, naval bombardment, and air cover. Reconnaissance aircraft had provided detailed maps of fortifications, guiding every wave of the assault. On the Japanese side, fortifications were technologically formidable. Concrete bunkers, coastal artillery, and machine gun nests designed to repel amphibious assaults. Yet these advantages relied on active manning and coordination. In their absence, even the most advanced defenses became static monuments, unable to influence the battlefield. The interplay of technology, intelligence, and human action was decisive. American equipment and planning amplified human capability, while Japanese fortifications, impressive on paper, depended on the human element to be effective. The landing highlighted a central lesson of modern warfare. Technology is only as powerful as the hands that operate it, and coordination often outweighs raw defensive strength. Leadership defined both sides of the landing. On the American side, commanders orchestrated a complex operation with precision. Division and battalion leaders had meticulously planned the assault, considering every contingency: enemy resistance, beach gradients, tides, and artillery support. Officers empowered junior leaders to make real-time decisions, ensuring adaptability amid chaos. Even without opposition, leadership remained critical. Coordinating waves of landing craft, maintaining unit cohesion, and securing beachheads required discipline and decisiveness. The successful execution of the landing reflected not only planning, but the ability of leaders at every level to instill confidence and maintain order under high-stress conditions. Japanese leadership faced a stark contrast. Commanders had built extensive fortifications and prepared troops for a protracted fight. Yet when Marines advanced unopposed, uncertainty replaced confidence. Orders were delayed or miscommunicated, and rigid doctrine limited rapid adaptation. The psychological blow of seeing meticulously prepared defenses fail without engagement undermined authority and exposed weaknesses in command flexibility. Leadership, it became clear, was as much about adapting to unexpected realities as it was about enforcing doctrine. Enemy perspective angle. From a Japanese viewpoint, the landing was both shocking and disorienting. Commanders expected fierce resistance, and their doctrine relied on inflicting maximum casualties to delay or halt enemy advances. Seeing Marines step onto beaches without a single shot fired defied expectations. Observers in bunkers, anticipating a blood-soaked engagement, were confronted with silence. Troops trained for last stands, conditioned to fight to the death, found themselves in limbo. Some hesitated to leave positions, unsure if withdrawal was permitted. Others abandoned defensive points as confusion spread. The sudden collapse of anticipated resistance exposed vulnerabilities in morale, discipline, and situational awareness. The psychological impact rippled through the island garrison. Disbelief, frustration, and a dawning recognition of the Americans' tactical superiority dominated thought. Moral/psychological angle. The unopposed storming of fortified positions carried profound moral and psychological consequences. For the Marines, the success validated rigorous training, discipline, and preparation. Relief, cautious optimism, and heightened alertness coexisted as they advanced inland, aware that the absence of resistance did not eliminate the risks of combat. The experience reinforced the importance of vigilance, intelligence, and cohesion in modern warfare. For the Japanese, the event challenged core principles of military honor and doctrine. Fortifications meant to channel, trap, and destroy invaders had failed without engagement. Commanders confronted the psychological weight of strategic miscalculation, and troops grappled with the dissonance between training, expectation, and reality. Beyond immediate tactical implications, the unopposed landing had broader ramifications for morale, cohesion, and the perception of American operational effectiveness across the Pacific theater. The interplay of human resolve, leadership, and psychology highlighted a key lesson. Battles are won not only through firepower, but through anticipation, adaptability, and the exploitation of enemy expectations. In this case, preparation, intelligence, and discipline allowed a small but coordinated force to seize the initiative, leaving the enemy stunned, disoriented, and unprepared. The first light of dawn revealed the beaches in stark clarity. December 15th, 1943, marked the moment when months of planning, training, and intelligence coalesced into action. Amphibious landing craft advanced steadily, engines humming through the mist, carrying Marines poised to secure a fortified island. The anticipation was electric, every man aware that hundreds of fortified positions were meant to defend this stretch of sand. As the craft reached the shallow waters, rifles were ready, grenades secured, and artillery observers monitored the coastline. Every officer double-checked landing schedules. Every Marine adjusted stance for the moment the ramp dropped. In the silence, anticipation was almost palpable, a tension waiting to snap. Then, the ramps descended. Marines stepped onto the sand, boots sinking into coral and soft earth. The expected hail of gunfire never came. No artillery thundered. No machine gun nests opened fire. The forts, looming ominously along the shoreline, remained eerily silent. Confusion rippled among the American ranks at first, quickly replaced by cautious relief. The landing had succeeded without a single shot. From observation posts, Japanese commanders were stunned. Reports trickled in. The beaches were being secured, the forts remained unengaged, and the enemy advanced with methodical precision. Radios crackled with questions and disbelief. Officers scrambled to assess the situation, sending patrols and scouts to confirm the reports. Panic and uncertainty spread among defensive positions as troops conditioned for fierce resistance were left idle and exposed. The Marines moved quickly. Units split to secure key positions. Artillery emplacements supplied depots and strategic high ground. Engineers followed, assessing fortifications, marking mines, and establishing communication lines. Every step was calculated, every action part of a broader operational plan, yet executed in an environment devoid of the anticipated resistance. Tactically, the Americans exploited the anomaly immediately. Reconnaissance had identified weak points and potential choke points. Without enemy fire to contend with, Marines established control over the beaches and surrounding areas within hours, faster than planners had anticipated. Each captured position strengthened their hold, allowing the next wave of forces to advance unimpeded. Japanese troops on the island, trained to delay and inflict maximum casualties, were disoriented. Some units hesitated, awaiting orders that never arrived. Others retreated without engagement, unsure whether to hold positions or withdraw. Commanders confronted the impossible. Their plans for a blood-soaked defense were nullified by absence, leaving them powerless to influence the unfolding operation. Inland, the Marines encountered more fortifications, but these too were lightly manned or abandoned. Fields of fire that had been carefully planned to channel attackers were empty. Japanese defensive doctrine, predicated on disciplined resistance, failed to materialize. The psychological impact was immediate. American morale rose, while Japanese cohesion faltered. By mid-morning, key objectives were secured. Landing zones, observation posts, and strategic bunkers fell into American hands with minimal casualties. Engineers disabled potential traps, while infantry consolidated positions and prepared for inland advances. What had been designed as a high-risk operation became a textbook example of precision, planning, and discipline achieving strategic advantage, even in the absence of active combat. This unexpected calm amidst fortified positions set the stage for further advances. The Japanese, accustomed to decisive, deadly engagements, were forced to rethink tactics, strategy, and morale. For the Americans, the success reinforced the importance of reconnaissance, preparation, and adaptability. The landing itself became a defining moment, illustrating that even the most formidable defenses could fail without coordinated leadership and human engagement. The stage was now set for the second phase: consolidation of positions, inland advances, and the full realization of strategic objectives. The first wave had achieved a near-perfect landing, but the broader operation would test leadership, coordination, and a Marine's ability to maintain momentum. By late morning, the Marines had secured the shoreline, but the operation was far from complete. The inland terrain, jungle paths, rocky ridges, and narrow trails posed natural obstacles. Every unit moved cautiously, aware that Japanese resistance could emerge at any moment. Yet, the eerie silence persisted. Fortifications that should have roared with defensive fire were largely abandoned, leaving bunkers, artillery positions, and observation posts empty. Patrols encountered the first signs of Japanese disarray. Trenches were vacant, command posts deserted, and supplies left in haste. Occasionally, small groups of Japanese troops appeared, but these were quickly overpowered or surrendered without significant engagement. The psychological impact was profound. Marines, trained for violent confrontation, advanced cautiously yet steadily, their vigilance balanced by the unexpected ease of movement. Japanese commanders, struggling to regain control, attempted to rally scattered units. Messages were sent via runners and radios, but confusion and disbelief hampered coordination. Some units hesitated, unsure whether to counterattack or retreat. The rigid doctrine of last stand defense, once a source of confidence, became a liability in the face of unopposed American advances. By midday, the majority of strategic positions inland had fallen or were abandoned. Tactically, the Americans capitalized immediately. Engineers cleared mines and obstacles. Artillery was repositioned to cover inland approaches, and Marines established defensive perimeters around captured forts. Communication networks were set up, allowing commanders to coordinate follow-on forces. The meticulous pre-landing planning paid dividends. Each unit knew its objectives, routes, and fallback positions, ensuring that momentum was maintained even in the absence of active opposition. Several key forts, previously considered impregnable, were now in American hands. Observation posts provided vantage points over the island, while artillery positions could now be turned to support further inland advances. The operation had achieved its primary objectives within hours, a result that would have been unthinkable under normal expectations of fortified resistance. The human dimension of this unexpected victory cannot be understated. Marines experienced a mixture of relief, heightened alertness, and cautious optimism. They understood that the absence of opposition did not eliminate risk. Hidden mines, potential traps, and the natural terrain still required careful navigation. Yet, the psychological advantage was clear. Confidence in leadership, planning, and training surged, while the Japanese garrison was left stunned, demoralized, and unable to mount an effective response. Japanese command, meanwhile, faced an unprecedented crisis. Fortifications intended to inflict casualties and delay the enemy had failed without engagement. Morale plummeted, cohesion fragmented, and the expectation of heroic last-stand resistance gave way to bewilderment and tactical paralysis. Reports described confusion and disbelief among officers and soldiers alike. The very doctrines that had once been a source of pride and strength now contributed to the rapid collapse of the defensive effort. By late afternoon, the island was effectively under American control. Key positions secured, inland objectives met, and Japanese forces disoriented, the operation transitioned from a landing to a consolidation phase. The strategic implications were immediate. A fortified island, expected to exact a heavy toll, had been captured swiftly, with minimal casualties and maximum tactical advantage. This moment marked a turning point not only in the campaign on this island, but in the broader Pacific theater. The success demonstrated the efficacy of intelligence-driven planning, disciplined execution, and the human capacity to adapt to unexpected conditions. Japanese commanders were forced to confront the limits of doctrine and the consequences of misjudging both the enemy and the terrain. The landing and inland advances became a case study in modern amphibious warfare. Coordination, preparation, and adaptability proved decisive, even when the anticipated confrontation never occurred. The Marines' ability to capitalize on opportunity, maintain cohesion, and execute complex operations under tension exemplified the evolving nature of combat in the Pacific. With the operation concluded, the narrative now turns to Aftermath, Section 1, exploring the immediate consequences, casualties, captured positions, Japanese response, and the broader operational impact of this unopposed assault. The landing concluded with minimal resistance, Yet the consequences reverberated immediately across the island and beyond. For the Americans, the operation was a textbook success. Beaches were secured, artillery positions captured, and observation posts established, all within hours of the initial landing. Casualties were remarkably low, a stark contrast to the blood-soaked predictions of planners and Japanese commanders. Engineers and Marines worked swiftly to consolidate positions. Mines and booby traps, though present, were efficiently cleared. The fortifications, once intended to exact severe losses on attackers, were now occupied and repurposed. Every captured position represented not only a tactical victory, but also a psychological one. The Americans had taken heavily defended territory without the anticipated firefight, demonstrating the effectiveness of intelligence, planning, and training. Japanese forces faced immediate consequences that went beyond territorial loss. Confusion and disbelief spread among officers and soldiers. Reports trickled in of abandoned bunkers, empty trenches, and fortifications taken without a single volley of fire. Commanders attempted to regroup scattered units, but the breakdown of communication and cohesion rendered most efforts ineffective. Morale was deeply shaken. Troops trained for fierce resistance found themselves exposed to the success of an enemy who had bypassed their defensive doctrine entirely. The psychological toll of seeing months of preparation fail in real time was profound. Accounts from Japanese officers later noted feelings of disbelief, frustration, and the acute awareness that strategic miscalculations had left them vulnerable. On an operational level, the unopposed capture of the forts accelerated the American campaign. The island's strategic positions, once expected to slow the advance, were now available for immediate use. Artillery positions could support further inland operations, observation posts offered superior surveillance, and supply routes were secured for follow-on forces. The operation's efficiency meant that subsequent objectives could be tackled sooner than projected, providing a tangible advantage in the broader Pacific campaign. The human element remained central to this success. Marines maintained discipline and vigilance despite the absence of combat. Officers ensured coordination among infantry, engineers, and support units, reinforcing the principle that preparation and training must complement opportunity. The Marines' adaptability exemplified the effectiveness of a force capable of executing complex operations even when conditions diverged from expectation. For the Japanese, the aftermath highlighted critical weaknesses. Fortifications, formidable on paper, had been neutralized without engagement. Command structures strained under the pressure of miscommunication and confusion. The doctrine emphasizing last-stand defense, so central to Japanese military ethos, proved inflexible in the face of unconventional circumstances. The failure to contest the landing not only ceded territory, but also undermined confidence in leadership, eroding morale and cohesion across the garrison. In the immediate hours following the landing, both sides recognized the implications. Americans celebrated the tactical efficiency, the low casualty rate, and the opportunity to exploit captured positions. Japanese commanders confronted the failure of expectations, grappling with the psychological shock of unopposed defeat and the urgent need to reassess defensive strategies across the Pacific theater. The stage was now set for the broader consequences of this operation. The ripple effects on Japanese strategic thinking, the acceleration of American advances in the Pacific, and the lessons learned in amphibious warfare that would inform subsequent campaigns. The narrative of success on the beaches would soon transition to a deeper examination of operational, psychological, and strategic outcomes in aftermath. Section 2. In the days following the landing, the implications of the unopposed assault became increasingly apparent. The Americans, having secured the island with minimal casualties, leveraged captured positions to support further advances across the Pacific. Artillery emplacements and observation posts, once held by the Japanese, now reinforced the American foothold, allowing for safe staging of supplies, reinforcements, and subsequent operations on neighboring islands. The efficiency of the landing provided a blueprint for future amphibious assaults, intelligence-driven planning, coordinated execution, and flexibility in the face of unexpected circumstances proved decisive. For the Japanese, the operation prompted urgent strategic reassessment. Commanders across the Pacific received reports of the unopposed landing and the rapid collapse of fortified positions. Confidence in doctrine, which emphasized unyielding resistance and fortification, was shaken. There was recognition that rigid adherence to traditional strategies left units vulnerable to intelligence-led operations and flexible adversaries. Across the theater, defensive planning began to incorporate contingency for withdrawals, deception, and unexpected operational maneuvers by Allied forces. Morale among Japanese troops was profoundly affected. Soldiers trained for fierce engagements faced the reality of an advancing enemy without opposition, challenging deeply ingrained beliefs about honor, sacrifice, and battlefield effectiveness. Reports from survivors noted confusion, frustration, and a loss of confidence in command structures. The psychological impact of witnessing fortifications fail without engagement reverberated beyond the immediate garrison, influencing attitudes toward resistance on other islands and reshaping the mental landscape of Japanese forces. American leadership capitalized on these lessons as well. Commanders recognized that intelligence and reconnaissance could create opportunities for overwhelming operational success, sometimes without direct combat. Coordination between naval, air, and ground forces remained critical, but the importance of anticipating enemy miscalculations became evident. The operation reinforced the value of meticulous planning, adaptability, and the disciplined execution of complex maneuvers, even when circumstances defied expectation. The island itself, now under American control, became a hub for subsequent operations. Airfields were repaired, artillery positions fortified under new control, and supply lines established. The absence of significant resistance allowed engineers and support units to work efficiently, accelerating the tempo of the Pacific campaign. This consolidation demonstrated that rapid exploitation of opportunity could yield strategic advantages far beyond the immediate tactical success. In a broader sense, the unopposed landing challenged assumptions on both sides about the nature of warfare in the Pacific. For the Allies, it highlighted the interplay of intelligence, training, and operational discipline as force multipliers. For the Japanese, it exposed the limitations of rigid doctrine, over-reliance on fortifications, and the critical role of adaptability in modern combat. These lessons would influence subsequent campaigns, informing both offensive strategies and defensive recalibrations across the theater. Reports and memoirs from American forces later described the landing as a psychological victory as much as a tactical one. The ability to secure a heavily fortified island without significant engagement provided confidence in planning and execution, proving that preparation could overcome expectation. For the Japanese, the episode became a case study in miscalculation, rigid command, and the vulnerability of static defenses to flexible, intelligence-driven operations. By the end of the week, the island stood firmly in American hands, operationally ready and strategically valuable. The operation's success reinforced the principles of amphibious warfare. Intelligence, preparation, coordination, and adaptability were decisive. The unexpected calm of the landing left an indelible mark on both sides, shaping strategic thinking and operational doctrine for the remainder of the Pacific conflict. The calm after the storm of the landing provided a moment for reflection, both for those who executed the operation and for historians analyzing its consequences. The stage was now set for a broader contemplation of what this event revealed about warfare, human decision-making, and the evolving dynamics of the Pacific theater. The unopposed storming of the island's forts stands as a striking example of how warfare is shaped as much by intelligence, preparation, and human decision-making as by raw firepower. On one side, American Marines demonstrated the discipline, coordination, and adaptability required to execute a complex amphibious operation. Every calculation, from reconnaissance to the timing of landing craft, from the placement of artillery to the management of inland advances, highlighted the importance of preparation meeting opportunity. For the Japanese, the episode underscored the limitations of rigid doctrine. Fortifications, no matter how formidable, relied on the human element to be effective. When anticipation failed and the defenders were absent or uncoordinated, even the most imposing defenses became silent monuments. Morale, cohesion, and command flexibility proved decisive, revealing that psychological and operational preparedness could outweigh static engineering. Beyond strategy and tactics, the landing illuminated the human dimension of war. Fear, anticipation, disbelief, and relief intertwined on both sides, shaping actions and reactions. Soldiers experienced moments of vulnerability and triumph, while commanders confronted the consequences of misjudgment or adaptability. It was a lesson in the delicate balance between expectation and reality, and the profound effects of perception in the chaos of combat. Strategically, the capture of the island accelerated the American campaign across the Pacific. It provided a foothold for further operations, secured key supply lines, and sent a message about the evolving nature of Allied offensive capability. Psychologically, it shook Japanese confidence in traditional defensive strategies, forcing a re-evaluation of tactics across the theater. In the broader sweep of history, this event demonstrates the enduring truths of warfare. That victory depends not solely on numbers, fortifications, or firepower, but on preparation, intelligence, and the ability to exploit the unexpected. The Marine steps onto those unopposed beaches became more than a tactical achievement. They became a testament to foresight, discipline, and the profound impact of human agency in shaping the course of battle. In the quiet aftermath, the forts stood captured, the island secured, and both sides were left to reckon with what had truly transpired. It was a moment where the expectation of bloodshed met the reality of opportunity, leaving lessons that would resonate far beyond a single day, a single landing, and a single war.